It is either late spring or early summer in the year 260 AD. Near the ancient city of Edessa in northern Mesopotamia, close to the modern city of Sanliurfa along the Turkish-Syrian frontier, the mighty armies of Rome advanced once again. At their head marched the aging Emperor Valerian, determined to reclaim territories that had been invaded earlier that year by the Sasanian Persians. Yet what began as a campaign to restore Roman authority would end in one of the most shocking disasters in Roman history. Whether through miscalculation, overconfidence, or simple bad fortune, Valerian would ultimately fall into the hands of Shapur I, the powerful king of Persia. To understand how this happened, we must first look at the state of the Roman Empire itself. At this point, Rome was enduring one of the darkest periods in its history, a time historians now call the crisis of the 3rd century. Threats emerged on every frontier. Germanic tribes crossed the Rhine and Danube rivers. Rebellions erupted throughout the provinces. Rival claimants challenged imperial power from within. Meanwhile, plague swept through Roman cities and military camps, weakening both the population and the army. Valerian's eastern campaign was intended to restore confidence, rebuild morale, and prove that Rome remained a dominant force capable of defending its borders against the rising power in the east. For centuries, Rome's principal eastern rival had been the Parthian Empire. Although the Parthians were dangerous opponents, their decentralized political system often created internal divisions and instability. Then, in 224 AD, everything changed. The Parthian dynasty was overthrown by a Persian nobleman named Ardashir I. From its ashes emerged the Sasanian Empire, a far more centralized, ambitious, and aggressive state. Its rulers viewed themselves as the rightful heirs of the great Persian empires founded by Cyrus the Great and Darius. Among these early rulers, none would prove more formidable than Ardashir's son, Shapur I. Shapur sought nothing less than direct confrontation with Rome. The Sasanian military represented a powerful evolution of earlier Persian warfare traditions. Its most feared soldiers were the elite heavy cavalry known as Cataphracts. These warriors ranked among the most devastating shock troops of the ancient world. Both horse and rider were protected by layers of heavy armor, while long lances transformed their charges into terrifying weapons of destruction. Supporting them were highly skilled mounted archers capable of unleashing volleys of arrows while remaining in constant motion. Persian commanders excelled at combining speed, mobility, and overwhelming shock action. The result was a military machine that repeatedly challenged Roman supremacy. Under Shapur's leadership, the Sasanian Empire had become one of the most powerful military forces on Earth. Unfortunately, the surviving sources provide only limited information about the Battle of Edessa itself. The exact course of the fighting remains frustratingly unclear. Unlike famous battles such as Cannae or Carrhae, no detailed tactical account has survived. Based on the evidence available, historians estimate that the Roman army may have numbered around 70,000 men, while the Sasanian force was likely smaller but possessed a significant advantage in cavalry, particularly heavy cavalry. Given what we know of Persian tactics, it is reasonable to assume that Shapur used this advantage to its fullest. Sasanian archers equipped with powerful composite bows likely formed the forward elements of the army, while mounted horse archers operated on the wings. These horse archers were expert marksmen. Fast, agile, and difficult to engage, they could strike from a distance and disappear before the enemy could react. The Romans had already experienced the effectiveness of such tactics centuries earlier at Carrhae against the Parthians, the predecessors of the Sasanians. With this in mind, it is highly likely that Shapur opened the battle by exploiting these strengths. Persian infantry and mounted archers advanced and began showering the Roman ranks with arrows. Roman missile troops answered in return, causing casualties among the attackers. For a time, a fierce skirmish unfolded across the battlefield. Then came the decisive moment. Shapur unleashed his elite cataphracts. Thousands of armored horsemen surged forward, thundering across the battlefield toward the Roman lines. These cataphracts were drawn largely from the Persian nobility and represented the empire's elite striking force. Covered in heavy armor from head to toe, both horse and rider formed one of the most formidable cavalry units of the ancient world. With lances lowered and confidence high, they smashed directly into the Roman formations. Ordinarily, charging heavily armed infantry head-on would be a dangerous gamble, but these were no ordinary cavalry.
Hold the line!
Those Roman soldiers who survived the initial impact often found themselves incapacitated. The sheer force of armored horses and heavy lances shattered bones, crushed shields, and left many unable to continue fighting. Shapur fully exploited his numerical superiority in cavalry. His horsemen would strike hard, withdraw quickly, and then allow fresh units to repeat the attack. Again and again, wave after wave crashed into the Roman front. This cycle of repeated charges steadily exhausted Roman troops without forcing the Persians into prolonged close combat, where cavalry traditionally faced disadvantages against disciplined infantry. The war horses themselves were massive animals, weighing well over 1,500 pounds. Once armor, weapons, and riders were added, the force generated by a charging cataphract became truly devastating. The impact shattered shields and knocked weapons from soldiers' hands. Lances pierced armor. Clouds of dust rose beneath pounding hooves, obscuring vision and adding to the confusion. For the Romans, the battlefield descended into chaos. Shapur's strategy was proving highly effective. The relentless cavalry assaults steadily eroded both Roman formations and morale. Valerian struggled to find an answer. Roman infantry found it difficult to counter an enemy that refused to remain engaged long enough for effective retaliation. The Cataphracts attacked from the front and withdrew before Roman troops could surround them, pull riders from their saddles, or exploit weaknesses in their armor. And those weaknesses were few. The Sasanian Cataphracts were among the most heavily protected warriors in the known world, covered in chainmail and overlapping metal plates from head to toe. Penetrating such defenses was extraordinarily difficult. Combined with the Persian superior mobility, these factors left the Romans increasingly vulnerable. As the battle wore on, Roman losses mounted. With events unfolding in his favor, Shapur prepared the final blow. An experienced commander, he likely committed reserve cavalry and infantry to outflank the already engaged Roman forces. Such a maneuver would have been entirely consistent with the methods of a seasoned general. And Shapur was exactly that. Having fought alongside his father Ardashir in numerous campaigns, he possessed extensive battlefield experience. While Valerian and his army remained focused on the Persian assault to the front, they appear to have been caught completely off guard by this maneuver. Whether Roman officers failed to recognize the danger or simply reacted too late remains unknown. Either way, little was done to stop it. By now, the opportunity had passed. Shapur's forces completed the encirclement and trapped the Roman army. Even then, many Roman soldiers continued fighting. Some were veteran legionaries hardened by years of warfare. Others may not yet have realized how desperate their situation had become. A number of ancient reports suggest that once defeat became unavoidable, panic spread through parts of the Roman army and many soldiers fled the battlefield. Valerian, however, did not run. Instead, he attempted to restore order and preserve what remained of his army. Perhaps he underestimated the scale of the disaster. Or perhaps he believed it was his duty as emperor to stand and fight regardless of the odds. The truth has been lost to history. What is certain is that the Roman army collapsed. Apart from those fortunate enough to escape, the force effectively ceased to exist. Thousands were killed. Thousands more were captured. The fate of Valerian himself remains one of the most debated aspects of the battle. Later Roman writers described his captivity in dramatic and often horrifying terms. Some claimed that Shapur used the captured emperor as a human footstool while mounting his horse. Others wrote of years of humiliation before his eventual death. Yet alternative accounts suggest that Valerian was treated with a degree of respect as a distinguished prisoner. Modern historians approach these stories with caution. Separating fact from propaganda is difficult. What is beyond dispute is that Valerian never returned to Rome. He died in Persian captivity sometime after his capture. No Roman emperor before him, and none after him, would ever suffer such a fate. The capture of an emperor sent shockwaves throughout the Roman world. It demonstrated that Rome could no longer depend solely upon the military systems that had served it for centuries.
The Roman world
in the decades that followed, sweeping reforms reshaped the Roman army. Among the leaders responsible for these changes were Valerian's son, Gallienus, and later the Emperor Aurelian. Their efforts helped stabilize the empire and prolong its survival. Yet the disaster at Edessa had exposed a harsh reality. Rome could still endure. But the age of unquestioned Roman dominance was coming to an end. And while the empire would survive for generations to come, its eventual decline had already begun. Thank you for watching this. Please subscribe this channel for more.